I hope that we will put defense under the same umbrella, the same lid, the same cap, and say, yes, it's vital for our national defense to control defense spending, just like it's vital for our national economy. We can't really have a strong national defense without having a strong economy, and we can't have a strong economy if we're running deficits in the $200 billion range. It is not possible.
Is one of the reasons we're in the problem financially today that we are is that we haven't put enough in capital improvement, that we've put too much in operations. And for 4 years, I have continually suggested more and more into capital. And if you don't put any money into capital this year, next year you have no funds from which to transfer into needed programs. I'm saying we need to hold tight on operation expenses. We need to continue to improve some money into the capital system so that everything isn't 100% into operations.
Let's approach the governor, let's approach the state House of Representatives, let's approach the state Senate, and let's approach everybody in the state of Oklahoma and say, hey, we have a great black man that gave his life for this country and the plight of the black people. We want a holiday. We're not asking for a holiday, we want a holiday.
The demand made by Representative Cox is one that lives in the hearts of all these people. Their feelings run so deep that they form their own coalition. It's called the Martin Luther King Holiday Coalition. They've got a dream that the man they honor and cherish should be recognized as a leader of peace and racial unity. They want the state and someday the nation to give him his own holiday, a day when all people can benefit from the life of Martin Luther King.
Think about all of the sacrifices individuals from all colors and all races and all walks of life are made to have contributed to make this country what it is today. And also to reflect on the struggle that we still have to face, we still have to wage.
Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the state capitol.
There are other items that people do need in their diet, but cheese and butter, and now if you go into the store you can see that this is a very expensive item, and individuals will pass up cheese or butter to purchase something else less expensive. So it is giving a source of that they didn't have before, and it is helping the farmers and the surpluses that are on hand.
So
the snow made the Holy Protection Orthodox Monastery seem more serene than usual. But sometimes appearances can be deceiving. One of the monks inside wasn't serene. He was excited about a ruling handed down by the United States Supreme Court. The monk is Father Philaret. He joined the monastery in 1972. In 1976, Philaret's dad was appointed his temporary guardian. The parent feared his son had become part of a cult and arranged to have his son deprogrammed. Philaret escaped his deprogrammers and returned to Oklahoma City. He filed a $3.3 million lawsuit against his parents and the deprogrammers. Philarette lost that case in 1981. In 1982, the 10th Circuit ruled that the trial judge had made a mistake by not allowing a jury to decide if Philarette had been falsely imprisoned and if the deprogrammers had, by outrageous conduct, intentionally inflicted emotional distress upon him. The parents have been dropped from the suit, but now the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the 10th Circuit and granted Philarette a new trial against the deprogrammers.
Deprogramming used to just mean Moonies and Christian people. And these actually, they're not only after groups like that, they will also go after Episcopalians and Baptists and even non-religious organizations. And that what the deprogrammers are trying to get pushed through, and especially in legal matters, is an opening for a very great deprivation of liberty.
The attorney for the deprogrammers is John Hayes. Hayes was out of town today for a trial, but I talked to him on the phone. He said the Supreme Court decision only gives Father Philarette the right to go back to trial, and Hayes said the deprogrammers will win again. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the Holy Protection Orthodox Monastery.
It has been 1 year since the Star School explosion. 30 people were killed and 7 injured when the school's hot water heater exploded. The accident caught students and administrators by surprise as they started to eat lunch. It was nothing less than a living nightmare. Frantic parents searched for their children while emergency technicians did all they could to help those who were hurt. Many families still consider this the worst day of their lives. Even now, children who survived the explosion often end up back in the hospital because of complications. Medical bills for some families can go as high as $20,000. A few parents doubt if their children will ever completely recover from the effects of the Star explosion. Pat Murphy told Action 4 her 10-year-old daughter, Christine, continues to suffer. The Murphy family says the emotional scars are the toughest ones to deal with.
It is so hard to put into words unless you're there. For children that have been maimed and hurting, and to live with this, to have, the nightmares that occur over it. And, then if it's your child that is bleeding and mangled, then it's even worse.
The cases of the Star School explosion suits for damages are ending up in appeals court. A district judge has already ruled the school system is only obligated to pay out a total of $300,000, even though suits amount to $10 million. As one parent said, it has been a lot easier to rebuild Star School's cafeteria than it has been for survivors to rebuild their lives. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Airliner operations have been touch and go at Will Rogers World Airport for the past 3 days. The snow and slush hasn't kept any airliners on the ground, but it has kept ground crews busy. Ground personnel have been de-icing the big birds since Tuesday. The alcohol-water mixture melts ice which has accumulated on airplane control surfaces. Nobody wants a repeat of last year's air disaster in Washington. One of the biggest headaches during bad weather is ice on the runway. A slick spot could spell disaster for a jetliner touching down at 130 miles an hour. Airport sanding crews are prepared to work round the clock to make sure the runways stay safe.
We have field maintenance crews. It's worked out contingency plans that they'll work in shifts. There will be hot sand and snow removal operations conducted through the entire night, and then the next shift comes in early the next morning, and it will go on and on and on until such time that we get back to normal operations on the braking action.
Police are blaming the bad weather for 3 auto accidents at the airport today. Thankfully, there haven't been any airplane mishaps. Maybe when the weather gets bad, it's safer to fly than to drive. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Will Rogers World Airport. Earn $250 to $500 a week in your spare time stuffing envelopes at home. This ad sounds great, especially to somebody who's just been thrown out of work. In fact, it sounds almost too good to be true. That's because it probably is.
Originally, they said stuffing envelopes.
Joe Harth answered a similar ad in the Guthrie newspaper last November. Out of work, Joe could use $500 a week. He sent his $15 to American Fidelity Company in New Braunfels, Texas. But he never received any information about stuffing envelopes. Instead, Joe got an invitation to place similar ads in Oklahoma newspapers.
I couldn't see doing it. I didn't want to be involved in it anymore. But I wanted to try to do something to maybe let the public know that it was going on.
It made me mad because I was expecting some material for stuffing envelopes. And then I saw that they had just wanted me to put an ad in the paper and have people, it's just almost like a chain letter type thing. That's what it seemed like.
Yvonne Young feels she was victimized by the same company. She's turned her complaint over to the U.S. Postal Inspector for possible prosecution. The U.S. Attorney's Office in San Antonio is considering taking legal action against American Fidelity. In the meantime, other ads promising big money for work-at-home schemes are popping up in Oklahoma newspapers. Remember the Postal Inspector's advice: if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
This has become an all too familiar sight. Police investigating a crime in which the suspect is a juvenile. This time it was murder, but juveniles are also committing more rapes, robberies, and burglaries. Many 16 and 17-year-olds now have rap sheets 2 or 3 pages long.
Now the district attorney has a new plan. He wants to make the county courthouse the site of some unusual cases related to juvenile crime. The youthful offenders wouldn't be the ones on trial. Instead, it would be their parents.
We're talking about those incidents where the parent's conduct in and of itself encourages the delinquency of the child by failing to supervise, by failing to work with the juvenile authorities when a child has been found to be committing crimes.
And I think we can make the case on it anyway because
the support personnel in the juvenile division of the DA's office hopes the plan is successful. The police made more than 3,000 delinquent referrals in 1982. And too often, the same names appeared over and over again. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the county courthouse.
Well, that's a good news and bad news story. The bad news is that we may have another cut this month in allocation of funds to state agencies. The good news is that we've collected more money and we have enough to fully pay it, but because we're anticipating a great increase in withholding income tax refunds, that the law requires the tax commission to keep some money back so they can pay the people their income tax refund. So we had a good month in December that we could normally allocate all the money, but we're anticipating that we need it, and we think that the taxpayers of Oklahoma, when they mail in for their refund, are entitled to it immediately.
Fourth, because we must ensure reduction and eventual elimination of deficits over the next several years, I will propose a standby tax.
To be exact, that proposal calls for a $5 a barrel tax on foreign and domestic crude oil. It would take effect October 1st of 1985 if the President and Congress feel it is necessary. That necessity depends on a number of things, including the gross national product, the nation's economy at that time, and if Congress decides to spend less money. But the bottom line on the proposed tax is the price at the gas pumps. There has already been a nickel a gallon tax passed. When it takes effect in April, that cost will be passed right on to the consumer. And if in 1985 the $5 a barrel tax is put into effect, it could mean another 12-cent per gallon increase. Besides the consumer feeling the crunch, oil companies could find the going tough if the proposal is put into effect.
I think there are enough companies now that are having a difficult time to getting by that an additional $5 hike in the tax on oil may put them over the edge. I think people are very, very concerned about it.
Are oil companies worried about the bad guy image they project when people go to the pump and find the gasoline 5 cents, 10 cents higher than the day before?
What this tax and what other taxes do is make the oil and gas industry tax collectors, but it's the consumer, it's the people who are driving their cars that are paying the bills.
Hess and other oil experts are predictably concerned about the proposal, but other analysts outside the industry say that if the tax does go into effect, and if oil and gas producers are not back on their feet by then financially, it will delay the recovery of an industry already beset with problems. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Such as perhaps cutting back on the school year. I don't think there's anything magic about the number of days that the school children have to go to school in the state of Oklahoma. The legislature, if it wanted to write legislation, could cut that back 10, 15, or 20 days. Or there has been some speculation of a bill which would reduce the days per week by 1, increase the number of hours the first 4 days to compensate for the days that for the fifth day. Very thoroughly, but a 3% cutback would have a devastating effect on probably about 28 school districts. If you were to impose a 3% cutback on them, what that would actually mean is that they wouldn't be able to finish their school year on the money that they have available, or they would be in default.
That's the bad news from Senate President Pro Tem Marvin York. The good news is there's still time to figure out a solution. One of the districts in trouble, Piedmont, Oklahoma. Today, classes went on as usual there, but low revenues and depleted savings have already forced layoffs and put the district under a buying freeze. Any additional cutbacks could be significant.
At 6%, which we have counted on and we have for the last 3 or 4 months, it's possible that we can make it. Our carryover here never runs over 3 to 5%. And with more than a 6% cut, it would mean that we could not operate it.
No firm conclusions have been reached so far concerning alternatives to battle the cutbacks and keep the schools open. But there is still time, and most districts are optimistic that community support will do the trick. Dan Slocum, Action 4.
Using our dollars to clean it up. I think that there is a sense of injustice out there. Work in the law that slipped in. As you know, mining is exempt in some instances. Whether it's toxin or anything else, it's been our policy and will continue to be that cattle dipping operation. And the people that get hurt are the American taxpayers, the one that we're supposed to be working for. Because they jeopardize our ability to force responsible parties to put their money into cleanup. If we start turning loose documents which analyze the weaknesses of our case or reveal our negotiating stance, then the only people who are well served by that are the defendants in these cases.
643 students attend school in Crescent. Superintendent Delbert Handke is responsible for the students' education as well as their safety. Last August, state inspectors refused to certify the school's 10 water heaters. A follow-up inspection this week left only one heater red tagged. Cletus Desher is concerned about that one water heater which flunked inspection. Desher has 2 children which attend the school and a wife who works there.
It may not be the exact same thing that happened at Star Spencer, but nevertheless it could happen. And they've had 3 months to fix it, and they should fix it.
It's been a little difficult to get these things ordered in and shipped in, and so this one has been red tagged. However, we have the valve in and will be put on tomorrow, which is Saturday. Will not interrupt the school system in any way.
The parents of school children in other towns like Crescent will be keeping a close eye on their school's water heaters. The memory of what happened at Star Elementary last year will make sure of that. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Crescent, Oklahoma.
My advice is to drive, if you're going to be out tonight, drive awful slow over the bridges because they'll freeze first. And then give yourself a lot of following distance between vehicles. That's about the best advice I can give. If it was me, I'd stay home. If I didn't have to get out.
He plans to continue the road we're on. Our test scores are improving, and he wants us to continue that improvement. Also, our enrollment is no longer declining, and we want to continue to grow. And he was showing us ways that this can happen here in Oklahoma City.
What were your major reasons?
if we make an adjustment adequately for the year we're in and for the coming year, then we won't have to come back next session and talk about cutting any further. If we take the attitude that let's really pretend it's not happening, let's see how we can hide the situation as best we can, let's put off until tomorrow what's happening, then tomorrow is going to be hell for all of us.
People walking the sidewalks of downtown Oklahoma City didn't seem to mind today's snowy weather too much. They're finally getting used to it. They take along the necessary equipment to work with them, or they just improvise. Oh, there's the usual hassles associated with the snowfall, but that can be easily remedied. Just look around. There are plenty of reminders available of places far away, warm, and dry. The snow didn't dampen the spirit of downtown construction workers either. They kept a busy pace, working right on through the snow shower, trying to get Leadership Square ready for this summer. Traffic on the Broadway extension didn't let up too much, but all that could change tonight when the traffic lets up and the cold sets in to turn the slush into ice. It took the jury 7 hours of deliberation before deciding the fate of former Oklahoma County Commissioner Ralph Adair. And when they had finally come to their conclusion, it was quite a shock to all involved, except the defendant himself.
Were you surprised by the verdict?
No. And if you notice, I was in there drinking coffee and reading golf magazines while I was waiting.
Your lawyer was surprised.
He was. I told him. He thought they'd bring in a quick verdict tonight. But I think that the people really, the jurors, read me. It wasn't ordinary testimony, yes and no. And I think Judge Eubanks was more than fair.
It's really quite an amazing result, and we're obviously very delighted with it.
You sound like you're very surprised you won.
Well, it just seemed to me like it was a very close case, and we thought we had all the time to walk a tight line through there. We thought we were right. We thought that's what they should have done, but you worry about it. And I think everybody in the courtroom that listened to it realized that the government put on a strong case, and it was just one that was difficult. And anytime you have a case like this, a county commissioner in Oklahoma in this environment, well, you worry about it a lot. And I just am delighted the jury could analyze the evidence and come up with what we think was the right result.
The innocent verdict cleared Adair of 19 counts. The 5-day trial was called by many experts the most complex and challenging county commissioner kickback trial so far. Meanwhile, the prosecutor, U.S. District Attorney Bill Price, said he was very disappointed and surprised. Quoting Price, "We've won 170 cases. We had to lose sometime, I guess." Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
During the past 2 weekends, a few thousand people visited the Oklahoma Boat Show. Most people came to browse, but some to buy. The recession didn't seem to bother some recreation buffs. Overall, boat show sales were up an average of 25% over last year. The biggest sellers were the bigger boats, most of which sell for $15,000 to $30,000.
They're smarter buyers. They're more conscientious buyers. They're concerned with price plus monthly payments, interest rate, a total picture rather than just I want.
Most of the boat dealers we talked to said buying a new boat isn't financially smooth sailing for everyone, but they say new low-interest finance packages have enticed a few new buyers. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the State Fairgrounds.
suggesting that we make a motion to organize.
At this time, I feel, let's do what we got.
No, we're not responsible for this stuff that's going on. I haven't thrown out.
We plan to do it the American way. We're going to go to our legislatures. We're going to go to the governor. We're going to go from the governor to the House, Senate, and then we're going to go to the president if necessary. And our group here wants to go and let people know that Oklahoma does have a good group of owner-operators, and our group here has not been represented.